Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome in, everybody, to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup for the week of April 29th, 2024. This week, we're heading to the Keystone State where we may actually get Sunday hunting. That is our lead article. And once again, Kaleigh Leager, our senior coordinator for the Mid-Atlantic States, joins us in just a moment. Wolf issues sweep through the Northwest. American Conservation and Stewardship Atlas largely captures hunting and fishing communities' recommendations coming from Kent Keene. South Carolina hosts a really well-received Caucus event. More to come on that from Connor Barker. We head to the Hill where Fisheries Director Chris Horton weighs in on the final stop for the proposed North Atlantic Vessel Speed Rule. And a fun play on words here. For the win, Illinois' hunting tournament ban misses deadline from one Bob Matthews. All that and more, but let's get to our featured guest, frequent flyer on the program, Kaleigh Leager. Kaleigh, welcome in. Regale us with what I do want to speak almost in hushed tones and not scare this thing away, but it feels like we have a pretty solid chance here changing Sunday hunting regulations in the state of Pennsylvania. Welcome and give us a download.
Thanks for having me again, Fred. It's good to be back. All right, so it seems that Sunday hunting has been a continuous topic this year, which is a good thing for us and for sportsmen and women. So I will give you just a brief kind of overview of what's happening in Pennsylvania. So before I came on board with CSF, it's been a trying topic for several years. So I learned that trying to get Sunday hunting, the restrictions removed in the Keystone State, as you previously mentioned, and we have a little bit of movement, or I don't want to say a little bit, we have a decent amount of movement going on this year. But again, like you said, we don't want to put too much emphasis on it because we're scared that it might go away. Where I think this is the closest that it's ever been. So I don't want to jinx it, but it's looking like it has a pretty daggone good chance of passing this year. So there's two kind of Sunday hunting packages in each chamber. So there's one in the Senate that's been sponsored by a previous caucus co-chair and current caucus member. I don't want to get this messed up because two of the members have very close names. This is going to be Senator Laughlin. Senator Laughlin, like I said, was a previous co-chair, is a current member, and that is a Sunday hunting package that has to deal with, again, removing the restrictions on the Sunday hunting, long-standing prohibitions that have been there for centuries. It also has to deal with increasing the penalties for trespassing on private lands. It has to do with adding a person who is specifically trying to represent the ag community. It's going to add that person to the board. I know that's something that was a little bit scary for us at first with the stuff that's going on, that, as you saw in Vermont, the thing that was going on in Kentucky, with kind of changing the entire composition of that board. But this specific language is not really changing it to that extreme. There's already people on the Game Commission board who have the qualifications. They're active farmers. They also have the background in wildlife management. And that's exactly what, this bill is doing. Within the Sunday hunting package, it's just codifying that someone basically has commercial farming experience, but it doesn't take away their requirement to have wildlife management background. They still have to go through the same appointment process with the governor's office, Senate confirmation. So it's nowhere as egregious as the other legislation that we saw around the country this year. And we think that it's a fair trade-off to get rid of that long-standing prohibition. There is some Sunday hunting opportunities in Pennsylvania now, but they're mainly bear, deer. There's some for, I think, crows, fox, and some other small game. But this is going to give the PGC, which is the Pennsylvania Game Commission, full regulatory authority to set those hunting seasons. So with the passage of this legislation, specifically the one bill out of this package that solely deals with Sunday hunting, the Pennsylvania Game Commission is going to be able to look and say, hey, we want to open this to every Sunday within a certain season or more Sundays within a certain season. It's important to note that it's not every Sunday of the year because we still have hunting seasons, right? And that's where some of the confusion was lying with some of the senators and representatives, that they were thinking it was all 52 weeks of the year, and that's not the case. They're still set seasons. So again, this is the closest we think it's ever been. We've submitted a letter of support, as my TSV article wrote or stated this week. We're waiting for a third and final hearing on the Senate floor, which is going to be a vote. And then I'll switch over to the House side. The same sort of Sunday hunting package was introduced on that side. It had an informational hearing the beginning of this month. I actually just got alerted today that it has a vote in the House Game and Fisheries Committee on May 22nd at 9 o'clock in the morning, along with some of those other bills in the Sunday hunting package. But we're specifically interested in the one that deals with, again, removing that prohibition. So we're making some headway. It seems to be a more accepted kind of action item this year in this year's legislative session in PA. So we're really excited about it. Hoping that this gets passed, because if it does, it's going to be a huge win for sportsmen and women in the Keystone State, and then folks like you and I, who are not too far from Pennsylvania, who can go and buy our non-resident license and try to hunt in that state.
Yeah, no, especially for the traveling sportsman or woman that having that Sunday available to you, it certainly opens up your opportunities with a limited time schedule and limited budget. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully we get this done. Pennsylvania remains one of 10 states in our country with some sort of prohibition on Sunday hunting, with Maine and Massachusetts being the two exceptions with outright prohibitions, with no exceptions, not even very little to none. Most of the states outside of Maine and Massachusetts, managed to chip away at it in some form. We just celebrated the passage of Sunday hunting for birds in Delaware, just waiting for the governor to pick that up and sign it, that I think you reported on not too long ago. South Carolina, Virginia coming along, Pennsylvania, as referenced, the 3 Sundays that they could designate where they wanted to. So, yeah, this would be a major win, and it's been a long time coming. So, all we can do now is hope folks just do the right thing. The parties that are for it have weighed in. We certainly have, enthusiastically so, engaged our Sportsmen's Caucus there in Pennsylvania, and hopefully this gets over the finish line. But it's a great report. Head into the summer, late spring here with some optimism. So hopefully we get it done in short.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it has a good chance. Hopefully, like I said, it seems to have more momentum behind it than it's ever had. This obviously right now, as it stands, the Senate bill is furthest along in the process, and we're just kind of waiting for either the House bill to do the same, because honestly, either bill that passes will do what our end goal is to remove that continued restriction on Sunday hunting. Because again, PA does offer some options for Sunday hunting, but not to where most people would like to see. It's been popular, and from a survey I believe that the Pennsylvania Game Commission did when I was in Harrisburg listening to the informational hearing, they were stating that it's usually the younger demographics that are in favor of Sunday hunting. And for examples of some of the reasons that I mentioned in the letters of support, it's schedules, it's family time,
Sure.
it's whatever it may be, that it's harder and harder to get in the field. People work 5, sometimes 6 days a week, at least 5 minimum. So giving that extra opportunity for that day, or Sunday's weather's better. I mean, that's, a lot of the times that happens here in Maryland for duck hunting. We don't have Sunday waterfowl hunting here, and most of the time it seems like on Saturdays it's blowing 40 miles per hour, and Sunday it's beautiful. So Sunday would have been a better option to go out, but we don't have that. So, you deal with the cards that you're dealt. So this will give option. Again, it's not saying that each resident they're not forced to go out and hunt on Sunday. So if that's not your cup of tea, stay home. That's fine. You don't have to do it, but it gives maybe your neighbor who wants to go out and do it the opportunity to. So it's just kind of adding, a play to your playbook. If it's something you're interested in, go out and do it. If it's something that you don't want to take part in, you don't have to. But again, it just kind of opens that opportunity for everybody. And I think that it'll be very beneficial to, people over here in the Northeast region.
Yeah, I mean, as you stated, with working class families and schedules just being a hindrance, doubling, the opportunity is huge, for removing that barrier for entry for all sorts of demographics, but definitely that working class family that, only had Saturdays maybe, and now doubling that opportunity by way of, 2 weekend days. That's a pretty big deal, and it could only be positive for Pennsylvania and contribute more conservation funding to the game commission, and then get those Pittman Robinson dollars to match. It looks like in 2023, the hunting license sales alone contributed nearly $42 million in Pennsylvania, and that turned into another $41 million through PR. So, stands to reason that more opportunity gets more people afield, and at very minimum sells more licenses. And as you said, it's not a law that you have to go out. You just have that option. So anyway, without being super repetitive here, a great opportunity here for Pennsylvania to get something right, and double the access for a great many of Pennsylvania hardworking working class folks. So we look forward to a follow-up report from you, hopefully with some good news, and we will talk to you again, no doubt. So great reporting, great work there, Kaleigh, and we will talk to you real soon.
All right. Thanks, Fred. I'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Thanks, Kaleigh, for your time and for the update on Sunday hunting in Pennsylvania. Continuing on with the headlines, let's head to the Northwest. This from Marie Newmiller on wolves. Washington Wolf Advisory Group met with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife Director and biologist in Washington's Department of Fish and Wildlife to discuss the annual wolf report and their recommendation to downlist wolves in Washington state. CSF holds an active seat on the Wolf Advisory Group and represented the Sportsmen's voice in those conversations. In the wake of the events in Wyoming, legislators and Wyoming Department of Game and Fish are beginning to have conversations about current predator zones and policies. Similar conversations were heard during Washington and Oregon's recent commission meetings. So, while wolves are the only species among thousands, the decisions being made with the wolf management have ripple effects throughout wildlife conservation as well as hunting and trapping opportunities. This past week, Fish and Game Commission convened across the Northwest from Washington to Wyoming. One common thread was wolf management. In addition, recent court rulings will lead to adjustments in the current wolf trapping seasons. The wolves have been a common thread across the region the past few weeks. The questions being asked and regulatory solutions available differ in each individual state. While wolves are the only species among thousands, the decision being made with wolf management, as I said, has ripple effects. Not an easy topic to navigate. Highly radioactive out there, and I don't think it's fun for anyone on either side to get involved with this. I guess the important thing is following the science and not putting prohibitions on the take of a renewable resource for this the sake of aesthetics or emotion. I'm sure we'll hear from Marie again on all things wolves. Let's check in with Ken Keene on the American Conservation and Stewardship Atlas. Prior to Earth Day, the current administration announced the launch of a new website dedicated to America the Beautiful. This is an initiative for the current administration. The information contained in the atlas is largely consistent with the sporting conservation community's priorities. Certainly a cause for celebration among our community. Moving forward, CSF will remain engaged in support of conservation and our time-honored traditions. The conservation.gov website included a beta version of the American Conservation and Stewardship Atlas, the administration's benchmark for lands and waters that are considered conserved relative to the initiative. The programs and projects included in the Atlas's beta version, are largely consistent with the sporting community and conservation community's priorities as outlined in the Hunt Fish 30 by 30 statement, and the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation will stay engaged as the conversations continued. When the current president first announced the administration's America the Beautiful initiative, the sporting conservation community quickly weighed in and encouraged the administration to consider benefits of sportsman-led funded conservation efforts as a part of the initiative. This included comments submitted by CSF-led Hunt Fish 30 by 30 Coalition. In the years since, hunters and anglers have waited for a glimpse of the conservation practices and programs that would be included in the American Conservation Stewardship Atlas, the administration database of lands and waters that they consider to be protected in accordance with the objectives of America the Beautiful. Earlier this month, the aforementioned beta version of the Atlas was made available on the same website, cited conservation.gov website. CSF applauds the administration in recognition of the vast array of conservation programs and practices, including those critical to sportsmen and women, as initiatives such as America the Beautiful continue to advance. CSF will remain engaged to ensure our heritage as sportsmen and women and our commitment to implementing real conservation measures on the ground are recognized and celebrated while protecting access to our time-honored traditions. Heading to South Carolina, Connor Barker brings us a report of a very good Caucus event there. On April 23rd, the South Carolina Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus hosted a policy forum reception in Columbia to discuss issues impacting hunter and angler access and opportunity, fish and wildlife conservation, and recruitment of the next generation of South Carolina's hunters and anglers. The policy forum component for the evening consisted of a panel discussion led by Caucus co-chair and National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucus Executive Council member Representative Bobby Cox, and Caucus co-chair Representative Heather Bauer and Senator Stephen Goldfinch, in addition to Getty's Barron, CEO of South Carolina Boating and Fishing Alliance, and Danetta Dawson with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, and Senator Chip Campson. Moderated by the former Caucus co-chair and NAS Executive Council President Brian White, and attended by 35 Caucus members, several sporting conservation partners, and the South Carolina DNR representatives. The policy forum facilitated important discussions about challenges facing South Carolina sportsman community and policy initiatives underway protecting sporting traditions in the Palmetto State. And it's always good when these events come together. Last week we talked about the Sportsman Day in Colorado with Barry. As you hear these stories, if you are a legislator, you think this is a great idea, we'd love to set up these kind of forums, Sportsman's Days, what have you, to invite folks out to expose them to the rich heritage, traditions, management practices, the involvement of the sporting community, and how this all works. And just answer questions, or be an observer, just see what's going on. These are great events, and you get a lot of leadership from state agencies, from NGO partnerships, from in-state business leaders. So it's always great when you get a room full of people who are like-minded in one way and have a similar set of goals. So well done in South Carolina. Bob Matthews brings us a piece of legislation that would have banned hunting tournaments, and that's been shot down because of some pushback as well as missing the deadline. So HB 2900 would have prohibited hunters in the prairie state from organizing and participating in fur bear hunting tournaments. The bill successfully made it out of the House Ag and Conservation Committee and was awaiting further action in the House of Representatives. CSF encouraged members of the Illinois Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus and party leaders to oppose the bill. Ultimately, leadership elected to keep the bill off the floor and re-refer it back to committee, missing its required House passage and deadline. Hunters, it should be known that do participate in such tournaments are required to abide by the same rules, same regulations, especially those related to wanton waste. These collaborative efforts certainly provide a resource to biological data towards predator mitigation, especially those with livestock depredation. It definitely serves a purpose. So another win here by that not continuing on the process. We go down to the Hill. CFS weighs in on the final stop for proposed North Atlantic vessel speed rule. Chris Horton brings us this. The recreational boating and fishing community understands that the importance of protecting the North Atlantic right whale and fully supports efforts to do so. However, a proposed rule regarding vessel speed reductions along much of the Atlantic seaboard will create significant access barriers for offshore anglers and boaters for more than half of the year, while doing little for the North American right whale conservation. The proposed rule is currently with the White House Office of Management and Budget for final review and approval. And on April 23rd, CSF and the Center for Sport Fishing Policy met with the Office of Management and Budget and Office of Information Regulatory Affairs. Man, government just doesn't make it easy. And presented compelling reasons why the rule should be returned to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to develop more effective and reasonable alternatives that protect whales while safeguarding access to the Atlantic. Holy smokes. Excuse me while I catch my breath. I think that paragraph alone is a nice illustration of why government works so well most of the time. Golly days. So in short, and I believe we brought this to you, in efforts to, let me dumb this down to every person, to the Fred Bird level. The idea is to make sure we're not running into these whales. They're threatened. Not many of them out there, but a broad sweeping low speed limit for very few of these creatures would be a physical hazard, safety issue to those on vessels. It would have crippled some industry, not being able to get anything done efficiently or in a cost prohibitive manner. So there's better ways. There has to be better ways. I can tell you, recently I met with some folks with some amazing technology that I hope to bring onto the show in the future. There were some folks from Whale Seeker, Viking Yacht Company that have worked together to come up with some amazing AI tech that is constantly learning and updating. And golly day, excuse me. And the technology and the cameras and the thermals and drones, and it's just a constant feedback loop. I'm not doing it justice, but I hope to have these professionals on to explain this technology better. But there is a solution. And so when you have this real-time reporting and tracking of these animals, it would allow for a much smaller buffer zone to be put around these whales so that people can continue to go out there and do what they do, fishing, whatever it is that would be affected by these large no-go zones for a period of time. And well, not no-go zones, but just lowering that speed limit. So now they can continue business as usual. Whales are here. Here's the coordinates. Stay, X amount of yards, feet, meters, whatever, away from the critters as they continue on their path. It's beneficial for everybody. So it's actually some pretty fascinating tech that is out there. So again, if I can find a way to bring all these folks together for more of a virtual panel, I think we're going to do that here in the future and kind of illustrate, because it really is interesting. And it seems to me as a simple fella on the street here that, if they can employ this and work together, it would be a fine solution. So certainly more to come on the right whales, and being able to have people continue to operate as they do. Finally, the Clemson Collegiate Sportsmen and Women's Coalition wraps up a successful first semester. Isabella Mucci brings us this. So during the last semester, Isabella Mucci, the manager of that program, spoke to the group there at Clemson. The group discussed a wide range of policy issues affecting South Carolina, including Sunday hunting, North American right whale that we just went over, vessel speed rule, public land and water access issues, reimbursement for free and discounted licenses. The coalition grew their membership to 32 students, have been able to host regular meetings to round out the spring semester. So Clemson's growing, doing good things, discussing the right policy issues, and that program continues to bear fruit and add to it. So expect more from Isabella in the future about new organizations popping up. So there it is, guys. Kind of a longer set than normal, but thanks for hanging in there for the week of April 29, 2024's Sportsman's Voice Roundup. That's your news for this week. We will be back, as always, next Wednesday with another roundup of stuff happening across the country as legislative sessions start to wrap. We'll be able to bring you more stories of work for the next session, our priorities. Yeah, should be a fun late spring and summer as we move into, again, the latter sessions. And there's a little election going on too, so I'm sure nothing will get boring. So thanks for bringing us along. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next Thursday for another feature episode of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. And until then, be safe out there. Continue success in the turkey woods. We will see you next time. So long. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.